Happy you could join us, folks. Today, we're very excited of presenting you our new product, the Cyber 6 Scale Attack Surface Management. Just a few words about myself. I've been working in the company in the last 2 years as a senior product management in charge of a few of our products, including the new ASM product, our alerts, and the API. Been working in product management in the last 5 years, cybersecurity in the last 10 years. What are we going to talk about today? So we're going to try and cover three main topics. The first one is to try and understand what is the problem or what are the problems we're trying to solve with this new product. We'll drill down to these problems, try and understand them better. We will try and understand why is it complicated to understand the attack surface and how does it connect to CTI. Next, we'll talk about the solution and what is the solution that we developed. I'll do a quick demo of the solution itself, and we'll see all the different features and all the different capabilities that we're going to add. And we're going to close with our future plans. What are we going to do next? And a few additional information. So jumping into the first topic, which is the problem, I want to start by looking at the problem in three perspectives. In the perspective of the end user, then we'll talk a little bit about the market itself, about Gartner, and what did Gartner have to say about threat exposure, about attack surface, and then we'll drill down to the problems themselves and the way that we think that we're going to solve them. So during the last January, we did a big survey to try and identify the different problems CTI, users, managers, SOC, incident responders have in their day-to-day work. And when we looked at the response was not very surprising, but it shined a light on a few things that we decided to focus in our product. So first, when looking at the objectives, three top objectives are exposing imminent threats to your organization, assessing the threat exposure of your organization, monitor the discovered assets, and to receive alert or notification on mentions of your company or the critical assets that you want to monitor. When you talk about the challenges or the mirror view of these objectives, again, it wasn't surprising, but it was to identify the relevant intelligence across the large amount of data. A lot of systems create the alert fatigue, having troubles with prioritizing vulnerabilities, and scanning and discovering relevant internal and external assets. So we took that into account, and then we also looked at what the market had to say about attack surface in general and about the combination of attack surface with CTI. So I'm assuming all of you know Gartner, the analyst firm. Looking at their publications from the last year or from the last 2 years, we see that some of the publications focus on the future of attack surface management, how does it support exposure management, the competitive landscape, and how does attack surface management relates or talk with other products in cybersecurity. Now, when zooming specifically about external attack surface management, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes and try to define it, but the combination of attack surface management and DRPS products, digital risk protection, what Gartner see as the advantage is the combination to bring you the comprehensive view of the organizational digital asset, okay, to understand more context about each asset, and as part of it, also the vulnerabilities that are relating to that specific asset. Another phrase that I think is important to learn from these researchers is the fact that Gartner is saying that the holistic view of the external information with the internal information, with what they call the entity or the asset itself, this is what will bring you the most value. The holistic approach between understanding the external threat, whatever it is, but focusing on your specific assets, this is what will bring you the most value coming from the combination of these two factors. Now, I want to zoom into the problems and the challenges and try and break them into pieces and understand how did we try and solve that. So when talking about cyber threat intelligence, I like to use the analogy of the casa in the forest. So when we're looking at the forest or we're trying to demonstrate it in terms of CTI, we see that there's a lot of data, right? There's data about initial access brokers or the marketplaces where they sell. We see phishing data, phishing website, phishing feeds, type of squatting domains. We see information about vulnerabilities such as exploit codes, stolen credit cards, credentials, the places where threat actors talk, a lot of data. a lot of data that you need to go through and understand what is important for your organization. Now, this data is critical, right? We're trying to understand what are the adversaries trying to do against our organization. But the problem is that this data tend to be overwhelming. It tend to be overwhelming because it comes a lot of time in an unstructured way. It's a lot of data, and this causes two main issues. One in terms of risk, and the second one in terms of cost. In terms of risk, we're talking about the fact that this causes your analysts to be overwhelmed, to have a lot of intel, to get alert fatigue, to bring them to decide on top of obsolete intel, on top of partial understanding of the organizational risk. And it also brings you to long mean time to detect, to remediate, or to act in general. Now, in terms of cost, even when using tools such as the cybersecurity portal or other tools, it takes a lot of hours for analysts to understand what is the data that they need to find, more hours, higher labor costs, etc. On the other end, we see the attack surface management. So we see the castle in the forest itself. Now, when looking at the castle, I like to say that looking at it from the external view will tell you that this is the most secure window where the vault is, and this is the main entrance. And here we have a water tunnel, and there's also a secret door here. Or in other words, using this attack surface as a way for you to understand how does people look at your organization from the outside, knowing how my organization look to specifically threat actors that are using different tools in order to find the breaches in order to get into your organization, in order to get your data. Now, zooming into the attack surface layers, and this is something that I want to emphasize. Why is it important to use automation and automatic tools, and doing it manually is not sufficient? So traditionally, when looking at the attack surface, we're talking about three main layers. The first layer is the layer that I call the self-operated assets, the data centers that you use, the cloud environments, the things that most of the organization are very aware using the DevOps team or the IT security. Most of the organization know what they have out there. The second layer is what I call the externally operated assets. So we're talking about the third parties that you're using, the organization domains, the subdomains, all the things that you're managing externally, the host that you have external to your organization. And then the third layer is what we call the digital supply chain layer. So external mail servers, the DNS, the servers, the services that you use, the data exchanges, these are things that are usually unknown to the organization and that are also changing. Now, when looking at these three layers, usually manual approach will pretty much cover the self-operated assets. So most of the organization know what are the self-operated assets. In terms of the externally operated assets, these are partially known. So it depends on the maturity of the organization, on the DevOps team, on the IT team. But here again, some organization, most know what are the third parties that they're using, what are the domains, what are the subdomains, etc. The problem usually stand when we're talking about the digital supply chain. The things that are changing all the time. You opened a new site in Singapore, and now you wanna find a new IP address there, a new service that is running there. There's a new instance as the one that your sales engineer opened in Brazil. Okay, so these stuff are continuously changing, and you don't know them, or they're mostly unknown. So to sum up the first part, I want to say that in terms of the problems that we face with attack surface management is the fact that we need more visibility and to reduce our exposure. Okay, so the risk in this case is the inability to secure my digital assets in the pace of expansion. So I might do a merger and acquisition and buy another company, or I might expand my business to new locations, and I'm exposed to risk. And the second thing is in terms of cost. So organizations that are doing it manually are focusing their resources in a lot of hours to find these assets. And even if you don't find these assets, you focus on the wrong things and you spend time on protecting the things that are not the ones that you need to protect. Enters the solution. So basically what we're trying to do is to combine the attack surface management with the threat intelligence. I like to talk about it in terms of the questions that we're trying to answer. So traditional CTI is trying to answer basically three main questions. Who is trying to target my organization? How are they trying to target? And when are they going to target my organization? Or in other words, This is the context that you're trying to get, but it is general context. A lot of time you don't know what is specifically targeting your organization. Then we have the refinement. Okay, we have the attack surface management as the tool that will help me answer the question, where are they going to attack me? So taking you to the analogy of the castle and the forest, I understand there's a lot of threat actors in this specific area, but if they're close to my secret door or close to the window with the vault, this is what interests me the most. And the answers to these 4 questions will help me answer the question of which. Okay, what is the prioritization that I need to do according to the risk and according to my specific business context, the organizational context? So we covered the world of the problem. We understand that CTI might be overwhelming, and we understand that finding your attack surface in a changing world is challenging, and the combination of these two might bring you a lot of value. Now let's zoom into the specific product and the solution that we developed in the last few months. In a nutshell, what we try to do is to combine ASM, attack surface management, with our CTI, to embed it into our technology and to use it in order to eliminate the threat exposure, the blind spots, the places where you are not aware of things that might affect your organization, and help use that attack surface to focus our CTI, to help you find the needle in the haystack, to find the intelligence that you need specifically about your organization assets. So zooming in one step closer, the product includes 3 main components. The first step is the asset discovery, but basically it's the external attack surface management procedures, the continuously discover of new unknown enterprise network assets across your supply chain. When we talk about the assets that we manage and we find at this moment, we're talking about domains and subdomains, hosts, certificates, IP addresses, the technologies, the third parties that you're using, and cloud storage locations that you have online. So how does it work? The scanning process, how does it work? Every scan starts with a C domain. You will provide us with your top level domain, cybersecurity.com, and we will use that and only that in order to start the scan. So basically, we're starting by finding commercial relationships. We crawl over the website. We're trying to find your products, your tech alliances, your career page, the different hosts that you have in your website, connection to a news website, connecting to your social media web pages, your subsidiaries. So that's the first mapping of your organization. Then there's an initial scanning based on that data of the complete internet. So basically, we're trying to discover the apex domains, okay, the subdomains via different tools, public proprietary tools, commercial data sources, show them who is DNS information, all of that in order to find all of the different spread of your organization throughout the complete web. Then we're trying to drill down. So we found these domains, we found these IP addresses, and we're trying to map these external and internal assets to third parties. Okay, basically, we're trying to find the different softwares that are running on top of these IP addresses or on top of these domains. Next comes a process or a stage of asset validation. Now, we know that in this field, there's false positive. What we're trying to do in this field is to use different rules, machine learning, advanced validation techniques to filter out these false positive based on different technologies and to reduce the number of assets that we found that are currently live and updated to your specific organization. And finally, we do the technology scan. So I mentioned in the second phase or in the third phase that we're trying to find third parties. In this case, we're trying to translate these different softwares, to translate them into the CPEs, into the way that softwares are being managed, and then to translate these CPEs into specific CVEs. Now, this process is an ongoing process as well. This is something that is done all the time. We're going to NIST, we're going to NVD, and we're finding for each CPE the exact CVEs that are relevant at this point in time. So this is something that is done in a continuous manner. Once we finish the discovery, and this is something that is done continuously on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, we start with prioritizing the exposed assets, or we present to you the different findings. So what we developed is a new attack surface page. I'll show it to you in a second, which we think will allow you to do a few actions to filter out, to sort to evaluate and prioritize the treatment of these different exposed assets. So this new page includes three main components that you will see in a second. The first is an overview of all your assets. So we're trying to show you what is the total number of assets that you have, how many assets at risk at this specific point of time, and what is the distribution of assets across different asset categories. Second is the inventory itself, okay, the table, the place where you need to now work and understand these different assets. Now, the key in this inventory table is to allow you to understand the context about the asset. What is the context? The context, sorry, the association of the asset, the location, the type of the asset, the related assets, softwares or CVEs, the alerts related to that specific asset. And finally, we also allow you to do user-defined and organization-specific labeling to these assets. So allowing you to understand your assets, to receive our recommendation, but also to add your own specific organization or user preferences. So to create tagging for specific assets, to create an importance level to that specific asset and get more data. And let's go see it live for a couple of minutes. So again, the system, the page itself, it will be named attack surface, and it includes three main components. The top component is the overview of your assets. So we have here the total number of assets that we found, how many assets are at risk. We define risk as a CTI risk. Okay, the CTI risk meaning it has an imminent alert relevant that was not deleted or resolved on that specific asset, or it has a CVE that is connected to that specific asset with a high DVE score, our specific dynamic vulnerability and exploit score coming from our module of the CVE intelligence. So we have here the overview of all the assets, and then we have the 10 different categories of assets that we now support. There's a red indication on some of these asset categories. These are anomalies that we want to point out to you for you to understand that there is something wrong with this specific asset type. So an anomaly can be that there's a higher than average number of assets at risk. It means that there is more than 25% of your asset that has an imminent alert on it. Something is not working as it should, meaning you need to start treat these assets and understand what's going on there. And the second anomaly is the fact that you did not configure asset of a specific asset type. We want to point out that if you did not configure executive asset, for example, you will not get specific alert about executives. Another thing that you can see here is what are the new assets that we found. Taking you back to the previous step that we talked about, the discovery, we do it in an ongoing manner. Okay, we found you the CVEs, we find you new domains, new IP addresses, new softwares. Now, this is done on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. So you can see here, directly from here, and also in the table, what are the new assets that we found. Now, this also acts as a filter for the table. And what we also have here is the ability to see the asset update time. I'm pausing here for something that I want to emphasize is, and I think that this is something that we're doing, which is pretty special, is the ability to integrate into the system a few different sources. So basically, when using the new attack surface page, you now have the ability to input assets manually, input assets via a CSV, input assets via the attack surface management module that we do, the automatic discovery, and also use your existing integrations. So basically, in one single pane, you now have the option of managing your complete asset inventory as you may are doing in different platforms such as, I don't know, Axonius or Wiz. You can also do it right now in our portal and see the latest updates. Next, we have the inventory table. The inventory table includes different columns with the ability to search through the entire list as a free text search. You have the ability to filter through the assets based on their asset type. You can filter through the assets if they're new or old assets. You can sort based on the asset name. You can filter the assets based on the source that brought these assets to your platform. So it can be our EASM engine, it can be manually, it can be our automatic conversion of CPE to CVEs, or all the other integrations that are currently supported in your system and that you can use. You can also sort the information based on the update time of the asset. Now we're entering the field of what I refer to as user-defined or organizational specific labeling and importance. So what we added to our system is the ability to define for each specific asset a label. Okay, so you have the ability to define this asset as an external asset or as a marketing asset, or this is the computer of my CEO. Now, these labels will help you do two things. Phase one, phase two. In phase one, you will have the ability to filter the assets based on these labels. On phase two, hopefully by the end of this quarter, you will get these labels when you will get an alert about that asset. So in other words, when you will get an alert about a specific asset, you will also have the context of that asset, including the source that brought you these assets, the label that you mentioned, the importance level that I touch in a second, and other information about the asset. Next, we have the monitoring column. Now, this is a change from the way that we worked so far in our system. Until now in the system, we use the asset as a straight point, meaning you enter an asset, we monitor it. You don't have the ability to enter asset that you don't want to monitor. Now you have the ability to decide if you want to monitor a specific asset or if you don't want to monitor it. We refer to as monitoring as the ability to receive alerts about these specific assets. Okay, so again, we did a shift in the way that we manage these assets, allowing you to use this table as an inventory to manage your complete assets and not only the assets that you want to monitor for CTI. Last is the importance level, where you can define an organizational importance level. So again, this will be in two approaches. The first phase will be the ability to filter the assets in the table based on the importance level. Next, you will be able to sort the alerts in the alerts page based on the importance level of the specific asset. Additional actions such as doing bulk actions, editing the labels, removing labels, setting the monitoring, setting the importance, removing assets, all of these existing capabilities such as uploading asset CSV, downloading the CSV, running simulation, running historical alerts, we maintained all existing capabilities. Another capability that we improved is the ability to add asset manually. So you can now see 10 different categories of assets, including different options that we added for the addition of assets manually. So for example, for the case of adding products, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help you do the conversion of CPE to CVEs without you inserting your CPEs here to the product. So for example, searching Jira will help us search through a closed list of products and find all the different products that has Jira in it. And then you will be able to define the specific version of your Jira. And when you will do this, and you will add labels and you will define the monitoring and the importance level, once you will do that, we will automatically convert this specific software to a CVE in an ongoing way. So if there's a new CVE on this specific version, you will get this CVE into your asset list. Lastly is the asset side panel. The asset side panel is what I refer to in my presentation as the context about the asset. So let's take this asset as an example. So we have here a domain, came from the ASM with this specific label, opt-in as monitored and with high importance. What do we have in the asset side panel is the general information about the asset. So information coming from the scanner data, the discovery date, the update date, the value, the source, the domain registration data. So the contact name, the organization name, the emails, the DNS servers, etc., and the whois and ranking information coming from different sources. Then we have the layers that are sitting on top of these assets. So again, I refer to it as context in my presentation. The ability to now look at the asset, not in a flat way like we looked at it before, but in layers. So in this case, for this specific domain, it has a software that is running on top of it, this specific Apache from this specific version. When we have the version and the product, we automatically convert it into a CVE. So this is the existing CVE with this DVE score. These are the CVSS score. You can pivot directly from here to the CVE page to learn more about the CVE. And you can also see the different alerts that are related to this specific asset. Clicking on the alert will bring you to the specific alert about that asset. How did we provide you with the ability to prioritize your different exposed assets? Again, to sum up, an overview of all of your assets, the asset association inside the inventory, and the user-defined classification according to your organization. Lastly is the ability to connect this ASM with our CTI, right? Because I focused on my first part on the problem section about the fact that we're trying to help you combine the attack surface in order to refine the threat intelligence to understand your specific needs. So What are we going to do there? Three main actions. One is to provide you with asset triggered alerts and context. I'll explain it in a second. To focus your threat hunting and incident response investigations, and to allow you to do automated attribution of potentially high risk CVEs. Let's zoom into these three actions, starting with the alerts. So as I said, one of the things that we're trying to improve is the ability for you to get more context for each specific alert. Up until now, we talked about context in terms of alerts, describing you, who is the threat actor, what is the score, what is the site, etc. Now we're trying to add another layer, which is the layer of the asset itself, to provide you with context about the alert with the asset itself. Second is the ability to do focused investigation. So I hope all of you know the ability inside our portal to run a search based on your assets. So my underscore type of asset, my domains, my IP addresses, my executives, etc. What we're trying to do with this is to help you find things faster. Okay, so when you will run my domains, you will get the most updated domains that we found for you, your IP addresses, your CVEs that are automatically converted. All of these will be automatically, and then you will be able to focus your investigation on your specific assets. And lastly, you will now have the ability to pivot between different modules and understand that this is the affected asset inside the CVE, or looking at it from the asset perspective. This is my asset and it has this CVE, and how does this affect me? And do I need to patch it because it has a high risk score, etc. Okay, so the combination between the alerts, the investigation, and the DV with the new ASM module, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve the user experience and the results that you're getting from the portal itself. A few things that I want to emphasize before wrapping it up. First, and I mentioned it during the presentation, is the fact that you can combine our EASM with manual CSV third-party integration into a single pane. Okay, this is something that is available for all customers, and we recommend you to do it in order for you to manage everything in one place. Second thing is the asset intelligence. Okay, what we try to do is not only to provide you with the discovery of the asset, not only the EASM part of the house, but also to provide you with general context. Okay, the ability to understand the who is information, the DNS information, and all that, but also the threat context. And all of that is done on that asset side panel for you to see the information in one place. And lastly, you will have the ability to decide which one of your tenants is an EASM tenant and which one does not have a discovery, is a CTI only tenant. So basically, you will be able to sell to your end customers or to decide which one of your end customers is having a discovery engine and which one are using just Tenable or Qualys or any other manual inputs to the system. A few things that we're working on adding in the near future, an asset risk score. You will see it in the very near future. Basically, it's the ability to filter in the table itself based on the risk score of the assets, high, medium, or low. An asset summary report, something that the ASM customers will get on a weekly or monthly basis. The assets that we found for you, what are the top discovered assets, the top risk assets, and these kind of information. Consumption via API, also something that we're trying to add in the next quarters. So the ability for you to insert assets through the API and also to get all the context about your assets, about the ASM model via an API. A rejected asset list, something that a lot of people ask for, the ability to manage the assets that you removed. Okay, so some of them might be false positive, or some of them you just removed and you want to revive them. So to manage it in the user interface, and also to trigger actions directly from the asset page. So to combine and to integrate our ASM product with security validation tools such as pen testing or breach attack simulation directly from our system. So clicking on a right click on an asset, trigger a pen testing or trigger a simulation, and then get the results back to the portal, and much more capabilities that we're trying to add. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that before we had it, the main problems of our customers were that they have unknown assets and overwhelming intel. Okay, and they struggle to have a need to cut through the noise to find the threats that are the most important. Now, after we launch this, we hope that we can provide you with a continuous discovery, updated attack surface to help you refine the threat intelligence and to find the specific threats to your organization in the right time that you're trying to act upon it. And second is the context. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is a context game. Taking this data into other systems to understand how you want to treat them. Until now, it was limited asset context. So you had the asset that was inputted into the system via third party or manually, but you didn't know anything about the asset. Now we want to provide you with a complete asset context, the association, location, your specific user defined, organization defined, and the threat context into one single pane. For those of you who want to learn more about our new product, feel free to contact your account executive, your CSM. You can also email me. My email will be listed in the recording. And you can also go to our amazing new website that we also launched last week to learn more about the specific product, to see videos, to see more information, data sheets, and this kind of information out there. I thank you very much for your time, and I'm here to any questions that might pop up in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you, Dor. So we do have a few questions. The first one is, how deep do you dig? An example in third parties. How active is your recon and discovery?
Okay, there's a few approaches. We took the approach that we're not going to be active. We're not doing any active actions against the organization. We're not pinging your servers. We're not doing anything like that. So we're just looking at the surface of the organization. We're not doing any activity against your organization or against the organization that are trying to surface their assets.
Okay, second question. Do you integrate with active scanner solutions? Example, Qualys, Nexpose for the ASM part, or a DAST/SaaS solution,
I can see it.
security, posture analysis.
Cool. So this is something that I emphasized during one of my last slides, is the fact that one of the biggest things that we worked on was the ability to integrate with other products. So the answer is yes. You will have the ability, if you're a Qualys user, or if you're a Tenable user, or if you're an Armis or Exonius, or any other one of the integrations that are currently supported in our system, to combine these two together. Okay, so in other words, when you will go to the attack surface page, one of the things that we did in the page itself is we combine different sources together. So if we got this asset coming from another EASM vendor, by the way, Census, for example, or if we got it from Tenable and from our EASM and from Manual, you will see all the sources together. And we're also working on adding new integrations such as Wiz and Armis and other integrations. So definitely, yeah, the idea is to integrate all of these different solutions into our system. Cloud discovery, I'm reading the question, do you integrate cloud discovery? At the moment, we don't support cloud discovery. This is something that we want to integrate in the next quarters, depending on your ability to provide it with your API keys or with keys to the cloud, also to scan the cloud. This will probably be a premium solution to the ASM customers that will purchase it. Do you map assets, free subdomains to one IP? Yeah. So as I said, now the inventory table include layers. Okay, so basically is the connection between an IP address, two domains, two softwares, two CVEs. This is basically the discovery that we're trying to do, and you will see the connection between them. You can see in the example that I showed you earlier that this specific domain is connected to a specific software, which is also listed, by the way, as part of your parties, as part of your products in the system, and it's connected to a specific CV. Same goes for subdomains and this kind of information. Is there a possibility to export reports? Excellent. So again, something I think that I mentioned in one of my last slides, we are working until the end of this quarter, Q2, to also add a weekly report or a monthly report to see insights about the products. Okay, currently we have the ability to download the assets if you want to see the raw information, all the assets with the labels and importance and all that. But we are working on adding also a report to show you insights. These are the assets that are at risk and other insights about it. What validation tools do you plan to integrate? We are working on adding additional tools to do validation and to reduce false positive. Such tools include, for example, Shodan, other capabilities to try and find if the domain is alive at the moment. We are working on integrate, and we are very open to open source. If some of you have things that you are aware of and you want us to integrate into the portal, we'll be more than happy to help you with integrating them. Is there a relationship to existing organizational assets? Not sure I understand the question. What we will do, if I understand it correctly, basically when we will do the launch of the new attack surface page to all of the customers, we will migrate your existing organizational assets to the new page. So we will take the existing domains that you have, the IP addresses, the CVs, etc., and we will place them in the inventory table as assets that were added manually or for any one of their integrations. So basically, we will do the migration for you. You will not need to do anything. The current organizational assets will remain as is, just in the new table. Will this ESM solution be approved by PCI? As I said, we are not doing anything that is intrusive. So I don't think it will not be approved by PCI DSS. I need to check it with our CISO, but I'm pretty sure that all should be approved because there's nothing intrusion and nothing active that is done there.
So there is one, how will you reduce FP while finding assets and domains? You mentioned you will use some ML there. Will this be automated to manual?
Yep. So indeed, as I said in the slide about the discovery process, one of the last steps is the validation process that we're trying to do. It is an automated process. You will not do anything manual. You will have the option, by the way, even without, even if one of these assets passed our validation mechanism, you will have the option of removing an asset and say that it is a false positive and then not getting it again. Okay, so this will be part of the rejection list that I was mentioning in the next quarters. The validation process includes different mechanisms to try and understand that this is indeed your asset. Okay, I'll stop by that, but it's different validation mechanism, including different machine learning capabilities and other mechanisms.
So thank you, everybody. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact Do or any other person that you are in touch with from the customer success team. Thank you and have a great day.